Flip the script. The back-to-back defending champs are taken down. One of the teams we thought would be at the bottom is at the top. Did you have that on your Major League Rugby bingo card? Well, we break it all down in what was an exciting week 3 and what that meant for fantasy managers and the top performing players. The Fantasy Ruckers Show starts right now.
Where rugby and the world of fantasy sports collide. Welcome to the Fantasy Ruckers Show, bringing fantasy rugby to the masses, talking all things rugby from the MLR to leagues around the world. We're on top of it. Headphones on, pads off. This is the Fantasy Ruckers Show. Now, here are your hosts, Ryan Yee, Matt Yee, and Devin Vanderpool.
What's up, everybody? This is episode 144 of the Fantasy Ruckers Show. Thank you so much to our Fantasy Ruckers League members, our community members, and everyone else tagging along on this journey of making fantasy rugby a reality in the MLR with you each and every single week. Matt Yee, Devin Vanderpool, I am Ryan Yee, and boys, I said it at the top of the show. Why don't we flip the script when it comes to
flip the
Major
script
League Rugby in 2025? Because what do we have here? Are we in some alternate universe? Because we got some defending champs losing in the New England Free Jacks, not looking too great.
Come on.
Utah decides to absolutely turn it on. Vandy's pretty pumped about that. And then speaking of Vandy, I mean, Vandy is killing it with his picks, and he's winning in fantasy. What world are we in? Vandy, I'll start with you, man. You got to be feeling pretty good.
It was all in the cards. I said it all before the season started. I have turned into your new Matt. I am the champion now. All right, you should listen to me. Utah's a wagon. My fantasy team's a wagon. You know what? Doing pretty good.
Hey, cheers to that. Cheers to that. I wrote down here in my notes, the mentors become the students, and the student is now the mentor.
You guys were talking about kicking me out, so I was like, all right. I'll show you.
It wasn't kicking you out. It was called relegation, Vandy, and it was well-deserved.
You Americans love your relegations.
On the flip side, Maddie, not too shabby in some spaces, maybe a little bit trickier in other, but yeah, it from your point of view and my point of view, I mean, it's hard to say because I love to see a guy who
I was going to say, you guys got to admit a little bit feels good. You guys have done this for me. It's all thanks to you.
Vandy, you done it all by yourself.
You know, when the Olympians, we're a little early here, but when the Olympians do well and they go over and they hug their coaches, yeah, that's what I'm gonna do.
I don't know if it feels that good of a moment, but it feels it's hard. I'm
Adrian. Anything is possible.
Split the difference because we also have to face you. You know what I mean? So it's like now we've created our own monster. Almost like a Frankenstein situation. Not yet. Not yet. We'll
if
see.
I get a couple wins, I might turn into
what
nobody wants to see.
But hey, speaking of though, this week 3 in another week that I guess Vandy does pretty good in. We do have a lot to break down. Had some exciting matches in week 3 over the weekend that we got to break down in this episode. Of course, talk about some of the top fantasy performers from that as well. We got a little bit more information. So we got some waiver wire stuff to go through as well. And then, of course, look ahead to the week to come, plus everything else in between when it comes to all things fantasy MLR.
And newsflash, I've turned. And what does that mean? You're going to have to find out.
Ooh. Okay. I guess we shall see. But let's get right into this episode, boys. Episode 144. Let's flip the script. Let's talk about everything that went down. But if you haven't already, follow us at the Fantasy Ruckers. At the Fantasy Ruckers, handles up above. If you're watching on the YouTube video, down below. If you're in the description, if you're listening on the pod, shoot us a like. Give us a little hit on that subscribe button. We really do appreciate it. We'd love to see the support that is Fantasy MLR to keep this thing going. Join our Discord community. It's been popping off. People chatting MLR, people chatting Fantasy MLR. Really fun community over there. The link to do that is also in our description. And hey, check out the fantasyruckers.com too, the official platform for Fantasy MLR here on the Fantasy Ruckers.
I scroll Reddit sometimes and I just see our site plugged into comments here and there. Makes me happy. I just smash the upvote button. So if you ever are looking for some karma on Reddit, I got you. Just comment the site name and we're good.
There you go. Trade you an upvote for a shout out on Reddit. But yeah,
deal,
I mean, we got all the stats up there on the fantasyruckers.com. Even got some new sortable filters and everything. The site is looking great thanks to our very own Alistair Kirsch-Poole. A lot of hard work going into that. So again, been super pumped to see the feedback we've gotten from that and how it's coming along when it comes to fantasy MLR. But let's get right into it, boys. There is some things we do need to catch up on when it comes to the latest from around the league.
News dump.
All right, it's time for our TFR news dump. We'll start off with, I guess, a slight correction from our last episode 143. I guess I mentioned it in our Discord. I guess we bought in a little bit into the hype because whenever there's rumors or inklings when it comes to being someone in the fantasy space, Vandy, you probably know this when it comes to other fantasy sports. You're trying to fish for whatever news that you can get that is going to make an impact in fantasy MLR. And the very, very reliable, incredible Brian Ray at Ray's Rugby said that New England fans will be excited for a returnee of someone that is a fan favorite. And we had talked on the show last week about possibly it being Bodine Waka. We couldn't be further wrong. We also talked in the same episode.
This is not on us.
Kyle
this
Bailey.
is not on us. This is not on us. This can't be on us. First
Who's
of all,
it on, Maddie?
The fact that Brian Ray tweeted it out is essentially the same as Adam Schefter or Ian Rappaport in the NFL tweeting out that, I don't know, New England Patriots or that Gronkowski's coming back or something like that. So I think
Kyle
this is
Bailey,
on us.
Kyle Bailey is obviously the guy he was alluding to. He's a fan favorite. We just read a little bit too much between the lines. It wasn't that much of a favorite. It was up there, but not maybe a Bodine Waka favorite.
Okay. So, yeah. We took too many steps. We took 5. We should have taken 1.
We should have just held the horses there a little bit. Either way, Bodine Waka, we will end the conversation there when it comes to that. Kyle Bailey, though, in the lineup this week in the New England Free Jacks. Not sure how much it helped. We'll talk about that in just a bit in our quick tech recap. But there is one last thing that I do want to mention, though, because we always love to talk about and get the excuse whenever there is a crossover between football and rugby. Obviously, the epitome of that is our very own Vandy, who started in fantasy football and obviously has made the transition successfully now to fantasy rugby, at least this far. There is a signing that was announced last week that we want to highlight to the San Diego Legion. Cash Meluia. Did I say that right? Meluia?
No.
Close enough. I should know as a New England Patriots fan, the former NFL New England Patriots player playing with the Patriots between.
How come you don't know your special teams guys?
And 21. Yeah. Why don't I know that? Why don't I know the special teams guys? Come on, do your job, Ryan. Bill Belichick would be not too happy with you.
Yeah, Michael Lombardi.
But he played with, I believe, the Chicago Hounds last year. Signs with San Diego this year. Was on the bench this past week in another dominant performance by the San Diego Legion. So just a quick signing there. Not much other news to go over when it comes to around the league.
We got time for news, Ryan. We got time for quick tap recaps.
Not quite yet, because we do have to get over my favorite part of the show.
Mistakes. Oh, I kind of like this part this week.
Yeah, I'm not huge on it this week.
All right, hear ye. Here is Supreme Commissioner Yi with a Fantasy Ruckers League update. It's getting closer to becoming my favorite part of the show. I have to say it as part of my contract as Supreme Commissioner, but we're making moves. We're making moves to get back up there for this to be my favorite segment, because having a slow start in the weekly challenge, I have made slight improvements to get back up there. But between the three of us, Maddie, you finished 3rd this week. Vandy, 10th. I was able to pass you this week, which feels kind of good. 8th. So a lot of things going well for you. Weekly challenge, not so much. But hey, shout out, though, to our very own website guru, Alistair Kirsch-Poole, for finishing number 1. I think for the first time in his...
he adjusted his stats. He runs the website.
No.
To be fair, he didn't finish 1. He finished 1 plus. I don't know. How do you do that? He tied for 1.
Yeah, and then
that's true.
0.1.
We'll give a shout out to Hawks58, who did tie with Alistair Kirsch-Poole. Matt, hey, if you ain't first, you're last. You did finish 0.1 behind, but
well, actually, I am first, Ryan. If we look at the season ranks, people,
that is true.
Let's not get it twisted here. Ryan is saying that he was 8th, but he is for sure on the season 12th. Vandy, don't worry, buddy. You're
Oh
still
yeah,
fifth on the season, pal.
top five,
You're
buddy.
crushing
Top
that
five.
guy over
We
there.
call it we
Don't let him beat you down.
we call it the weekly challenge. It isn't the
I
season
refuse
long
to lose.
challenge.
There is a season rank here. So
All right, I'm gonna get Alistair Kirschpool to take that off the website.
okay.
All kidding aside, awesome to see the participation with the weekly challenge. Congrats to Alistair Kirschpool. Congrats to Hawks58 for finishing first this week. And I know that our very own analytics mind, Nick Johnson, says his goal by the end of the season is to finish higher than at least one of us. So right now he's doing a pretty decent job. He's in 13th right now. I just passed him this week in 12th, so we'll see whether or not he can
I
make
don't
the
know
push
if he's
here.
doing a decent job if he's behind you.
That's true. That is true. I am a pretty low bar this year so far. A couple other announcements to make here before we get into a recap of the week. Hey, check eligibility. We're now 3 weeks in. If you are a fantasy manager in one of our TFR leagues, you know the rules when it comes to eligibility. 3 weeks in, if a player goes 3 straight weeks at a certain position or makes 3 starting appearances at a position, he gains that eligibility. Goes 3 weeks without playing a position, loses that eligibility. Again, in our Discord, we have those rules outlined in our rules channel. But this is the week. 3 weeks have passed. There are some switches when it comes to eligibility. Most notably, Ethan Grayson has now gained back 3 eligibility and is no longer center eligible. And then also Santiago Videla coming in as fly half eligible has started as back 3, center, back 3,
That hurts.
loses the fly half eligibility and
Bye-bye.
now gains back 3 eligibility. So those are the most notable ones here. Make sure you're checking out those switches and adjust your lineups and waiver wire pickups accordingly. Lastly, injuries. There will be injuries coming out throughout the week. Chicago Hounds, notably, one of those teams that got hit hard by the injury bug during that game. It was a small price to pay when it comes to taking down the defending champs. A lot of HIAs, including Dylan Fawcett. So we will be keeping and monitoring any information that comes out with that to make guys IR eligible. We did have a few that went on the IR this past weekend with some notable updates, including Tim Sweel, some New England Free Jacks guys. So keep an eye out for any other injury updates, and we'll make sure to keep everyone posted in our Discord. Anything else? I mean, I'm a commissioner of the people. So do you guys have anything that you need to update the TFR managers with? I think this is the first time I've given you guys the opportunity to speak in this segment.
I'm just letting everyone know I'm starting a milk carton thing to find Semi Kunitani, but other than that, he is not been found.
Yeah, we will definitely get into that because maybe we need to start an initiative here where we do maybe pitch in a few bucks to
Find Semi.
Find Semi. We'll start the hashtag find Semi. Let's get that going. Anyways, let's talk a little bit about the week 3 that was and get into the meat of the show.
Quick tap recap.
All right, TFR quick tap recap. Let's go over the week 3 that was. One team on bye, RFC Los Angeles. And we started off again with another Friday matchup with Anthem Rugby Carolina and the Miami Sharks. But before we get into, I guess, the matchups, overall thoughts. We're 3 weeks into this, boys. 3 weeks into the fantasy season, 3 weeks in the MLR season. Overall thoughts on the league so far as we are now, I guess, approaching the full swing of MLR action.
Andy?
What do I think about it so far?
Yeah. What do you think about 3 weeks in?
Kicking ass, buddy. You know what? Feels good. Normally, I don't start seasons with this much hope. But yeah, no, having a lot of fun here. I feel like prior seasons, I feel like there was some drama throughout the season, and we're getting some missing players and everything. That's fantasy rugby, but no real, in the league drama, I guess. So
yeah,
too many yellow cards, in my opinion. Refs are getting a little flag happy. Or not flag card happy, whatever.
There you go.
And if we're gonna start giving more yellow cards, can we just check my lineup first? Like I average 3 yellow cards a week, man.
It is funny as I'm punching in the stats, kind of seeing. You're like, oh man, like this guy is absolutely tearing it up. And then I get to the yellow card column and it's like, oh, never mind. Mediocre performance and what could have been one of the top performances.
Because it's 5 points, right, for yellow?
I think -4 for yellows, -8
That's
for
right.
reds.
That's right.
So yeah, definitely hurts the fantasy stats there a little bit though. But Maddie?
Just hard to gauge right now. hard to gauge with a lot of these teams trying to figure it out. We'll talk a bit more as we get into each matchup, but yeah, I've turned, and that's all I'm saying right now. But we'll get to it.
All right. Let's get into it then, and let's try to get to figuring out what Maddie means. But we'll start off with Anthem Rugby Carolina at home against the Miami Sharks. Oh man,
so close.
Will they ever do it? Because at this point, yeah, it doesn't feel great. Obviously, I have the book at bets that says Anthem Rugby Carolina is going to win 3 games
shot
at least. This one was one of them, but it didn't turn into that. I was hopeful watching the game. They were close, and then Miami punches in that last one to kind of seal the deal. Yeah, I mean, they looked better, which is optimistic, I guess. But again, it's also against the Miami Sharks. I'm right now questioning if they will ever win one. But we'll see. But overall thoughts on this matchup, guys. 32-31 victory for the Miami Sharks here.
Yeah, what a match. What a way to start off the round 3 of MLR.
Yeah.
But look, Miami lost themselves a game. It was clear as day. They lacked discipline.
Anthem lost themselves a game.
No, sorry, Miami should have lost themselves a game. Anthem should have won. Miami stunk.
Yep.
Miami sucked on defense. They really lacked any defensive integrity. They were trying way too much offensively, and just simply, it seemed like they were in that classic syndrome of like, we can play free and loose against this team and don't have to worry about it. But enough about Miami. Let's give Anthem their flowers. Look, the set piece turned it around. The set piece was actually solid in this game, which, hey, if you're another team and you see their set piece rolling, you got to be concerned. But yeah, they deserve the win. To my eyes, they looked aggressive. They looked like they're playing well. They looked fast. I almost thought that their aggressiveness at the start of the game, when it was so tight, consistently going for the corner and not always converting when they should have went for points. It's a double-edged sword, man. Like every game, if they ever get close, they need to play it like it's an international test game.
Yeah. Because
they need to. They started playing like that at the end, but I think they had to turn that switch and say, hey, we have a shot at this and we need to start racking the points on the board. But man, did Carolina ever deserve that win?
Yeah. I mean, it was, again, edge of my seat. I thought they were going to do it. I really, really thought they were going to do it. And I was going to come on this show. I had a monologue ready, written up about to tell you guys how I am a foreseer of the future. Betting on obviously making that pick for our picks on the show last week, but also putting a little bit of money down on this outright upset that we'll talk more about in our TFR betting challenge. But yeah, it doesn't come to fruition. But I will say, silver lining from a fantasy perspective, though, when you have a 32-31 match that goes back and forth, you're going to have a lot of fantasy points being scored too. We'll dish out our team of the we'll dish out our first team of the week honoree. Obviously, no longer fly half eligible, but fly half eligible for this past week. Santiago Videla, 16.2 fantasy points in this one. Pretty great when it comes to his performance. And it's pretty solid to see when it comes to what he was able to do over the course of that. So again, 16.2 for Videla. And then if you go down the list in terms of other guys, I mean, Line Latu on Anthem Rugby Carolina getting the start at the fullback position, 17.6 for him. Another second straight double-digit performance, 98 meters, a try scored as well. We're going to
have to talk about him in waivers.
Yeah, Line Latu, we'll definitely get into him more. Eric Storty, a guy that I've talked about that you need to jump on this wagon when it comes to this young first overall pick that they're obviously emphasizing to get involved in the game plan, and he's taking advantage of it. 15.1 this past week. He scored now 3 straight weeks of over 7 points, back-to-back weeks of over double digits. Another try, second try in 2 straight games. Pretty awesome to see. And then from the Miami side of things, Thomas Kubisha, starting at back 3, gets another 13 fantasy point performance, and Benjamin Bonasso with another double-digit tackle performance and back-to-back weeks now with the try, playing the full 80, gets in 12.8 as well. So plenty of fantasy performances to go around here in this match.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, Eric Storty, every time he gets the ball, he seems to be, just a spark plug. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he goes throughout the season. And unfortunately, Junior Gaffa kind of takes a hit there, not exactly being that projected number 1 center that we were hoping he'd be.
Rest of season. You on the Gaffa side now or the Story? I know we were both very high on
Gotta be
Junior
Storty.
Gaffa.
There gotta be Storty.
Okay. That's crazy to think about going into this, right? Like Storty went largely undrafted in a lot of fantasy leagues, maybe in a couple because of that upside being the first overall pick. But I mean, going in the season, that's pretty insane in terms of that. Yeah. Anyways, though, lots of fantasy points against Santiago Videla, our team of the week honoree from this one at the fly half position, 16.2 fantasy points for him. Anything else left to say for this Friday night opener?
No, sir.
Not really.
All right, let's go on to the first matchup of Saturday. We'll save probably the one that Vandy wants to talk about most. We'll get this one out of the way because it was pretty chalk as per se. May have predicted otherwise on the show last week, but what we basically the consensus came to think about when it came to this outcome ended up being San Diego. Once again, another dominant performance, 26-10 victory over Old Glory DC in DC. We thought maybe there'd be some injury that'd be hampering the San Diego Legion, but Lincoln McClutchy back in that 10 spot. They come up with the same powerful lineup right up front, and San Diego Legion takes care of business and wins this one to continue rolling here. And what many would consider right now, I think, one of the best teams in the MLR out of the whole league.
Yeah. And I think like when I look at San Diego, you think about a really high powered offense and you think about a very fast paced offense. And frankly, I didn't even think that they were necessarily playing at the pace that they wanted to play at, or they usually play at. I think offensively, they showed a lot of patience inside the 22, which just shows their kind of class. But for me in this game, it was San Diego's suffocating defense. Like the suffocating line speed and the suffocating defense of that team makes them a dual threat on both sides of the ball. And it's impressive to watch. And it forced Old Glory DC to make a lot of mistakes. And they were sloppy. Old Glory DC was real sloppy. And just, yeah, they were never really in it to win that game. San Diego Legion really dominated the entire time.
Yeah. I mean, it's fun to watch this San Diego team. I mean, Maddie, you're obviously the guy that's really high on this player, but how much of this success is attributed to now the return of Richard Judd and him facilitating that offense?
Yeah, I mean, the first game for sure. I think the last two, not so much. Like Richard Judd, they haven't necessarily played with a really high paced offense in the past couple games, in my opinion. But what he brings is a veteran leadership and experience that you really is undervalued at that 9 position. Mm-hmm. And you'll see the immediate difference between some of these young guns around the league versus the experienced vets like the Richard Judds, like the Andre Warners, like the John Polans, that really know how to control the game.
Talking about kind of fantasy guys and brand new guys that are back in the league. I mean, again, team of the week honoree, second row position, Jed Holloway, 10.1 fantasy points. Yes.
Did we nail this one? Did we nail this one? Because I had him first, no?
I think you might have nailed this one, Maddie. I mean, he plays second match playing a full 80. He racks up a try assist, only 6 meters gain, but has 10 tackles and two breakdown steals and turnovers in this game. Yeah, I mean, 2 out of 3 matches, he's scoring above 10 fantasy points. This guy is going to be a unicorn when it comes to the second row position. We saw something very similar when it came to Frank Lahore's dominance. Jed Holloway seems like he might be that as well. And then we got to mention some other top fantasy performers here. Brad Wilkin. Brad Wilkin.
What a guy, man.
Another one that we talked about in terms of guys that is going to perform. I mean, the guy has 53 tackles on the season, 20 tackles in match 3.
And he came off the bench last week.
He came off the bench and still racked up 6 tackles, right? And like 27
monster.
27 the week before that. Obviously, we have that YouTube short of Maddie talking about this back row room when it comes to San Diego Legion. Brad Wilkin is one of those guys that you need to watch out for. He adds a try on top of that. I mean, incredible. Brad Wilkin is going to be one of the top fantasy players this season every time he's starting on the field.
Yeah.
And he just gets 100%. His head in there, man. I think he had 2 turnovers too, or steals, I guess.
Yeah.
Man, the guy is
two steals.
He's so good, man. Like,
yeah.
It's just ridiculous. And a workhorse. Like an absolute workhorse. Like an absolute workhorse. It's
and he doesn't get yellows.
Yeah, and he doesn't get yellows. Yeah,
It's crazy.
that's a big one.
To get 20 tackles in this league and not be getting yellows, like to average 20.
And then just a couple other guys to add to this. I mean, Thomas Awake seems to be taking real advantage of the success that San Diego has had. 3 straight weeks now that he has double-digit fantasy points, has a try in every single game
Crazy
so far
how
this
late
season.
he was going in drafts.
Yeah.
Nuts.
I mean, Awake was a guy that I think mentioned last year as a sleeper, and then obviously San Diego had a down year. So then the value of him is obviously lower heading into this year. But yeah, he's proving doubters wrong. Obviously, he's 86% owned, so he's still available in some leagues, but this guy's got to be rostered. We'll get into more of it later. But I mean, 12.8, 10.7, 13, incredible. I think the surprise, though, of the season right now, Ryan James.
Yeah.
Ryan James, another double-digit fantasy point performance, doesn't even need a try this week, has 62 meters gained. He now has over 60 meters gained in every single match so far this year. It starts off the year with the heater of 19.7, obviously with the true two-try performance, but follows that up now with 18.5, 11.8. Ryan James is a solid guy. Obviously, on the Old Glory DC side of things, when you're only scoring 1 try, there's not going to be that many fantasy points. Owen Sheehy's the one that scored it, coming off the bench. But I mean, the only guy that's really of note is Jamison Fa'anana Schultz, who in his second match gets into the double digits for the first time this season. But it was all San Diego all day when it comes to that match here. All right, let's get to it because I know Vandy's itching to talk about it.
I'm itching to talk about this one.
The game at 4 p.m. Eastern time. I think we have 2 polarizing sides of this. If I recall, we need to roll the tape because I remember Maddie saying the NOLA Gold. The NOLA Gold. We're going to win.
I've said I've turned.
The Utah Warriors putting a statement down at home. 55-21 versus the NOLA Gold. I mean,
Andy, you go first, buddy, but I've got something to follow right up.
I just got to say, you know what? If the refs would leave us alone and stop handing out these yellow cards, it would have been worse. We would have slaughtered them even worse. I mean, absolute monster game. I mean, good to see Joel Hodgson get out there for 20 minutes too. You know, I don't know if those are just garbage time points. I mean, it feels good to be talking about garbage time points from a Utah fan, but you know what? Just an absolute monster game. It's like watching exactly why you should be a Utah Warriors fan. If you like fast breaks, you like tons of points, you like fast moving rugby, you know, basically we're the polar opposites of Houston. We're enjoyable to watch.
Yeah.
And you know what? I said it at the beginning of the season. Nobody believed me. I got laughed at in the draft. Joe Mono comeback season. Jesus. Can I stand any louder? I tell you, you guys don't. Nobody listens to me. But hey, here we are.
Feels good, Vandy. It feels good, doesn't it?
Undefeated to start the season. The smell of success is just, it's coming on strong. Yeah, I mean, what else you want from me?
I mean, couldn't have guessed that, honestly. Like we said it, but Maddie,
you couldn't have guessed it. You didn't have to guess it. I told you.
Let me talk about Utah first in this game, and then I'll get on to NOLA because I got a lot to say about them. Look, Joe Mono, I'll start with that. Joe Mono, he doesn't get the ball a lot, but every time he does, he finds himself an opportunity to get in the end zone, and it is electric to watch. And he doesn't even need all the touches. He just gets it and scores, and that's just is what it is. A few things from me, like Utah set piece, dominating force here. Like dominating force. I'm not sure what changed, but they are a dominating force this season, and they're going to continue to be a dominating force.
And
the offense.
To cut you off too, I told you Zion was going in this week. I told you. I told you.
Dumb. It was so dumb.
Anyway,
so dumb. I told you they're going to do this all the time. But it's so dumb. Offensively, look, the structure wise in the first 20 was amazing, but frankly, they didn't even need structure anymore for the rest of the game because they were scoring off of first phase, first, second, third phase at will. And it was ridiculous. So Utah caps off to you, Vandy. I think Joel is going to be playing. Joel came on and did exactly what he needed to do. He managed the game. He won the game. And he just forced NOLA to have to play something that they couldn't do. And onto the NOLA side.
They were showing that we didn't have a single guy over 10 carries that game. Perfect ball distribution, kept attacking from all angles. I mean, Nick Ben looks great out there. Jordan Trainer looks. I mean, I'm loving this new squad. You know what? When I seen all these guys go, especially McEnany, he was my favorite. It's tough to see, but
Hey,
gotta say it's hard not to have
Jordan
a smile
Trainer,
about this team right now, man.
Jordan Trainer is a nice replacement for that.
Yes, he is.
Nola. Uh,
Nola.
look,
Nola.
Nola has on paper looks fantastic. You look at the players, they look fantastic, but frankly, as a Nola team, you have to look at the tape for the past 2 weeks. The fact that you cannot win your own breakdown is ridiculous. You look at your team and you cannot win your own breakdown, you're never going to win a game. You lose the contact area, you lose the game. Until Nola figures out how to win the contact area, until Nola figures out how to retain the ball, they will not be beating any team in this league. And that potentially includes the next time that they face the Anthem. Just simply awful. Like it's just hard to watch. It's hard to watch a team be this bad, where every time they touch the ball by the third phase, they're losing the ball at their own breakdown. And it's to a point where I almost want to say, fantasy wise, when you look at this team, you look at who's playing NOLA, and you just look for steals. Like you look for breakdown steals, because these guys are not gonna defend their own breakdown.
And you know what? It's coming in bad spots. Like I think Ed Fidow had 4 turnovers that game.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, exactly. And they're just like
turning over on the wing, man. You're not giving much of a hope to get that back.
And they're just running out of bounds. They're not even like, there's so many times where they just got hit out of bounds. It's like you didn't even try to stay in.
Yeah.
You knew that the line was there the whole time. But let me put it this way: like you look at some of the top point scorers and you look at Utah. Let me just walk through all the people that got breakdown steals, and you tell me if these are usuals to get breakdown steals.
Say it real slow and loud for the guys in the back too.
Joe Mono, breakdown steal. Nick Ben, breakdown steal. Liam Coleman, okay, yeah, sure. Logan Crowley, breakdown steal. Like you're looking at your back three, and you're exactly. Like you're looking at your front row and your back 3 and your 9 getting all these breakdown steals against the NOLA team.
Yeah. They've got turnovers.
Keep going, Maddie.
Man.
Got an issue.
They're not protecting the ball.
An issue. But hey, let's give flowers to Utah, because we got to talk through some of these guys. This back line. Cool. This back line is filthy.
Yeah, I mean, we've filthy. There might have been a mass exodus in Utah, but like they've replaced it perfectly. Let's talk about Joe Mono.
Clearly.
Let's talk about Joe Mono.
Let's talk.
5 tries. 5 tries in 2 matches to start off the season. 14.6 fantasy points, 24.3. He would have scored higher, but he got a yellow card. He's one of those guys. That would have been a guy that was closing in on that 30 gap. 3 tries, a hat trick of tries, 96 meters gained, plus that turnover, 1, that steal that you're mentioning, Maddie. Yeah, I think Vandy said it all. There is a high possibility that the OG Joe Mono is back in the building.
He's back.
I think it's really hard to look at anybody on this offense and say that you don't want a piece of it. Like,
yeah. I agree. I agree. And what's funnier is that Utah was on that first week bye, right? So like a lot of these guys were sitting on your waiver wire and available to pick up because no one really wanted that piece. But you mentioned it, Matt. Nick Ben, you had him in your weekly challenge lineup, 15 fantasy points this week and your start of the week.
No. Ryan
Jordan
James
Trainer. Jordan Trainer, 11.3 fantasy points there. Liam Coltman continues to do Liam Coltman things, bring his expertise as a former All Black to the Utah Warriors, scoring 2 straight tries in 2 matches here. 10.3 points in round 2, 10.4 in round 3. And again, is a really big reason of that set piece that is absolutely clicking. I will mention the other side of it. NOLA Gold, Cooper Coates continues to look very adequate for fantasy.
Is due for a big run every game.
Yeah. And that's what you're going to get when you can pick up at that fullback position, right? Like when you have a guy that, has the ability to kind of eat those meters, as we like to say here on this show, it's good. And I will throw out Ed Fido too, because again, you take away that yellow card, the guy's scoring 13 fantasy points, his first try of the season. So again, it's grim for NOLA right now. Very, very exciting if you're a Utah Warriors fan. Kind of to wrap this up, Maddie, when it comes to being a NOLA fan, do they have
not a NOLA fan?
No, not you. I'm saying in general, if the NOLA fans out there that are listening, if you are obviously concerned about this season so far, Is there still time? It's only round 3. You
There's tons
mentioned
of
it.
yeah.
They have the pieces, right?
They have the pieces. There's tons of time, but here's the issue: contact area is not a skill issue. Contact area is an effort issue, and frankly, if you're not putting the effort in at the start of the year, it only gets harder from here. It only gets harder to put in the effort. And contact area, winning the contact area is all effort. And if you lose that early in the season, I'm sorry, but you've lost the team. Like
Yeah.
it's just not going to happen. So interesting to see. Yes, they got guys on paper. If you're a NOLA Gold fan, I'd be very concerned because those guys just don't care.
It's
So
like the
yeah,
old
again,
Chicago, when their team was stacked, I think, what, last year?
Yeah. But even then, like those guys, like this is it's hard to watch. It's hard to watch the past 2 games of how abysmal they've been in the breakdown. And it's literally all you need to do is work hard at the breakdown. That's it.
well, it did surmount to Utah's very first win in program history, franchise history over
Let's
the
go.
NOLA Gold.
Oh,
Again, team of the week honorees in this one. We
that's a rough
mentioned it.
stat.
That's
Joe Mono.
That's not one you want to hear, eh?
Joe Mono, best back 3 player of the week, again with 24.3 fantasy points. And we talked about the set piece. Utah Warriors, the best defensive set piece this past week with 5 points there. Moving on now, let's go into the evening Saturday match in what was a fun back and forth affair. I think the Seawolves fans were looking for a bounce back week against what was an abysmal performance against San Diego. Houston looks to be back on the right track. Very exciting to see them last week kind of put it on all cylinders, and they come into this one a battle of a Western Conference beast that will probably have some playoff implications later, depending on how the Seawolves kind of turn things around. From a record standpoint, doesn't look so great because the Houston Sabercats come out on top here 24-21. But the Seawolves did have a chance to win this one here. They did have a chance. It's just that Houston outlasted Seattle to close out the dub there and squeak by with 3 more points than the Seawolves.
Does this not feel like a completely different Seawolves team?
Yep.
Like that whole I don't know why I remember like the seawall mantra and whatever. I'm not saying it's gone, but it was like that was a terrifying team. When I used to watch Utah and when we were bad, and you watch them go to Seattle, and you're like, here we go. Here's the 55-11 game coming, And now I don't know. Like even when I went to bet on them, I'm like, they just seem different. I mean, they don't have Reichert, but
Yeah.
it's more than one guy.
Yeah, I agree. And honestly, I think for me, they're missing a lot in that. Yes, they're missing a lot in that forward pack, but to me, it's that back line. They just
Yeah.
wasn't able to like Houston's D. Actually, I'm gonna give Houston D their flowers. Like they had a very impressive line speed and very impressive connectedness across the line.
Yeah.
That really made it difficult for Seattle. And Seattle, a team that is usually so good in terms of manipulating the defense and making it hard for defenses, they just weren't able to do anything. And a guy like Eddie Fouché, who we talked about 2 games ago before the bye, like, hey, this guy might have won the starting job here. You're now looking back and saying Eddie Fouché just wasn't up to the task this game. So yeah, it's interesting, Vandy. To your point, like you just look at the Seattle side and you're like, who am I to be scared of? Like, what am I to be scared of? There isn't much. Like, I don't know, but yeah, good on Houston.
And I mean, what'd you think of the end there, Maddie and Ryan? When they could have went for the penalty kick with like 4 minutes left, they decide to hold on to it. I mean, they're only probably on the 20-meter maybe, and then Coates has that really bad knock on, like nobody on him, terrible knock on. What do you think about them not taking the penalty, or do you go for the win there in week 3? As rugby,
I mean,
guys.
I think we've had this conversation on the show before,
but you're kind of you didn't maybe get the start you were hoping for. You think you go for that penalty there just to,
I'm a win guy. I'm gonna go for the corner, go for the win. But that's just me. It's especially season club rugby or league, going for the win. Go all the time for the win.
So either way, I will say there is some context put into this. Seattle was missing Dan Creel. They move up Devon Rousseau and have Rodney Iona. I do think that Dan Creel, I think the original lineup of having Dan Creel and Devon Rousseau in that center pack there would have looked a whole lot different than having Rodney Iona there. We've seen Rodney Iona at the center position. We've never been.
I actually thought I thought he looked okay in this game.
But he's not a Dan Creel.
Be looking better there. Mika Kruse at 11. I thought he'd be looking
it was an interesting line. Either way, I do think though that the best is yet to come for Seattle. So we'll see how they kind of progress here. I don't think, obviously, you can't really say anything about that San Diego loss, but I think there is a level of optimism for Seattle fans after that performance.
Young season.
You know where there is a level of optimism. My goodness, seeing Devin Shortback looking like an absolute monster. Absolute monster. I'll start off right in the fantasy, guys. Because I want to talk about Devin Short, 18.9 fantasy points this week. Didn't even need the meters gain. Got 8 meters gain, 1 try, but defensively, 22 tackles, 3 breakdown steals.
Yep.
That's a great game.
Our back row team of the week player. Great to see. Great to see Devin Short back. On the Houston side of things, we got to talk about Peter Ane Asu, who is great to see his second start of the year and gets 18.8 fantasy points, plays the full 80. We don't even see a glimpse of Seth Smith in there. Gets 36 meters gained, 14 tackles, 3 turnovers forced. And again, amounts to our front row team of the week. And then we also have, I guess, from the Seattle side of things, good to see this guy come back because we haven't seen his name in quite a while. JP Smith, best scrum half, 7.4. I mean, I think a large portion of that was a turnover forced and then a try assist plus the full 80 played. But you list on some other guys here, Davey Kutzer, continuing to look fantastic. One of 15. The best fantasy players on
he's about to lose his eligibility.
Yeah, he is.
He's close. He's very, very close. That him being at that back 3 position, it keeps it there. But it's 2 fly halves, 2 back, 1 back 3.
He's only played 15 when AJ, and this is AJ's first time starting, right?
Yeah, and I gotta say though, I think Houston is looking a bit more dynamic than they have in the past years.
Yep.
They're definitely utilizing. Yep, they're definitely using the back. Actually, the guy I want to talk about is Rufus McLean. Regardless of the off-field stuff that might be surrounding him, or that was used to surround him in his past, he looks really good on the wing. He looks really good on the wing, and I gotta give to the U.S. fans, Max Schumacher again looks very good with ball in hand. Probably doesn't show in the fantasy stat line, but I really like the way that he looks.
Nice. All right. Let's move on to the Soul Sunday matchup. The Chicago Hounds put a drubbing on the defending champs, New England Free Jacks, 36-7. I mean, it was looking like New England was going to get shut out there. Like it was looking very, very grim. Chicago just put the pedal down, and New England just did not look like New England. Turnovers, handling errors, just a lot of stuff that is uncharacteristic of a back-to-back championship team that you don't typically see with this New England Free Jacks squad. We've talked about their slow starts in the past, but you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know. This loss feels a lot worse than some of the other ones that they've had in their slow starts. Like, I would be concerned if I was New England Free Jacks fan.
Well, the thing is, it's not like they just they lost in a very, very bad way. So many unforced errors. You know, like one that really stands out was when I think it was Paula Bellacana and Jason Patros were both on the sideline, and they both jump for the same ball and go out of bounds. And then, Paula Bellacana gets that bad yellow, like really bad yellow, which I thought might have been a red, like just straight up headshotted. I can't remember who. But just so many unforced errors. I mean, I think Chicago got 2 penalty tries too. Just, I don't know, weird game from New England. Seemed like their veterans, instead of, I don't know, they seemed frustrated. I don't know what it was. It was just, I texted you guys at the 50-minute, just after half. I'm like, what is going on here, man? Like, this is unprecedented levels of bad for them.
Just, and you know what? The one thing that I'll say is that the concerning thing from my side is that they got simply just outplayed. I mean, New England Free Jacks had, if you look at their defensive line speed, it was actually good. there was nothing wrong with their defensive line speed. They came up and they came together, and that's what you expect out of them.
Mm-hmm.
But Chicago handled it perfectly. I mean, if you watch the first 40 minutes versus the last 40 minutes, watch how many times Carl Say decides to put it behind the defensive line and force them to turn around. And then watch the last 40 minutes and see how much that New England Free Jacks line speed slows down.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why they score all those points in the second half. So to me, it was just, Chicago just played really great D. Not necessarily, I mean, some people were just saying it was amazing D. I think they simply just made their tackles and they scrambled really well inside their 22. Noah Brown, shout out to scrambling real well and knocking that ball loose.
Yeah.
But yeah, you guys nailed it on the head. New England Free Jacks, just a lot of uncharacteristic mistakes. The one for me is just inaccurate kicking. The number of times that I saw Chicago just be allowed to counterattack and come back is just ridiculous. So good on Chicago though. Good for him. Couple notable things. Fawcett left early. Chicago lineout did not look the same without Fawcett in there. And Conradi and I believe John Poland both left early for the New England Free Jacks side.
Yeah. So again, kind of part of our league update there. Again, injury stuff. We obviously try to keep an eye and monitor that when messages come out so we can place these guys on IR. Those are definitely some names to look out for. Definitely a price that Chicago paid to get this victory for sure. But still a very, very solid win. When it comes to fantasy performers, we'll dish out our last team of the week honoree, and that is at the center position, Ollie Devoto. Maddie, you've been a guy that's high on this guy heading into the season. He gets his first double-digit fantasy point performance of the year, his first try of the year with a 62-meter game, 13 tackle, of course, the try and the full 80 minutes played in the matchup against the New England Free Jacks. Other guys on the Chicago side of things, Michael Hand looked very, very solid, 13.4 for him. Bryce Campbell looked pretty good, 10.6 as well. And then on the New England Free Jacks side of things, when you're scoring again only 7 points, hard to get many fantasy performers. You had Jason Putros that obviously scored the meaningless try there. But Joe Johnson is a guy that we'll touch on a little bit later here. He was a bright spot and has been a bright spot for the New England Free Jacks.
Did he have a try taken back? No, Joe Johnson?
He did. He did.
Yep.
He did. His hand. It was
yeah,
close.
as he dove in, he barely. Yeah.
By the way,
that's right.
That's mental error again.
Yeah,
like you talk about inaccuracies, just not something you expect, and that's one of them. That wasn't luck. That was just a mental.
You see Quatrin with the buttery fingers when he did when there was the line out and he went to throw it and then just literally threw it like right at the ground behind the line out, and everyone's just like, what?
Just about sums up the afternoon that was for the New England Free Jacks. Again, not much else to touch on when it comes to that. Again, just a dominant performance of Chicago over the New England Free Jacks. So again, fun week, lots of fantasy points scored. It did feel like we did have a lot of fantasy points spread out, probably the highest of the year so far. Haven't had, I think, our first triple-digit fantasy team as of yet. It does feel like as a whole, there's a little bit less scoring, but this week with some of the high-scoring performances, it did feel like we had a lot of points this week. But let's talk about some points that maybe you can find that are available for you to pick up here heading into week 4.
Waiver wire breakdown.
Whoa.
All right, let's get into the TFR waiver wire breakdown and talk about, hey, if you had some of these guys that maybe you've been waiting for to start, or maybe guys that haven't been cutting it for you, there are still some names out there that you can pick up when it comes to guys that can maybe turn around your team if you're looking for that W or keep that confidence and that long streak of winning going with some of these new guys that you can bolster up your roster with. Let's start off, Maddie, with the front row position and talk about maybe some guys that are available here for the front row. Why don't you start off with your name first?
Yeah, I've got Facundo Gaddis in here. This is more so of like a looking ahead play. He's going to be playing the Anthem this upcoming week. And I think he's going to be starting. And yeah, I mean, hey, I don't think Old Glory DC is going to have the same in Miami. I think Old Glory DC set piece is better than Miami's, and I think that Old Glory DC will be able to take advantage of that, and more specifically, Facundo Gaddis will be able to take advantage of that.
Yeah, 9.2 fantasy points on the season so far, which is adequate
It's
in two
nothing
matches.
special. This is all a matchup play. This is
Yeah,
all a matchup waiver pickup. You are dropping him probably right after next week.
14% owned, so he's available for that streaming option against Rugby Anthem or Anthem Rugby Carolina. I'm going with Karan Van Vuren.
Yeah, good choice.
29% owned, 10.3 fantasy points on the season so far. Obviously, there was the conversation on what was going to happen. Obviously, with DeWalt Kotza being there, DeWalt Kotza had some questionable performances here so far to start the season.
Yeah.
Karan Van Vuren starts at the hooker position for the first time this season, makes his first appearance, and he comes out with 17 tackles. He scores a try for the Seawolves, 10.3 fantasy points. Especially if you're the Devalt Kotza owner, I would definitely match him up with Karan Van Vuren, if not just outright swap him. I would honestly pick DeWalt Kotza or Karan Van Vuren at this point over DeWalt Kotza just based on that last performance for that front row position. Moving on to the second row position, guys. I guess one thing is to say before we get into it, it's barren. You look
Boys,
at
we're
our site,
struggling. I
you
was
look at our
struggling here.
you look at our site, right? And you look at the players list, and then you sort by owned percentage, which is, by the way, a new feature on the fantasyruckers.com. It's like there's like 6 or 7 guys that are 100% owned, right? So like everyone knows these mainstay guys that you're like, okay, we know that these guys could at least get me some points. And then it's like sporadic 10% spread across all the other guys.
Yeah.
Let's give you some names though that maybe that you could look at. For me, Maddie and Vandy, I'm going with Johan Mumsen. He has 11.8 fantasy points on the season so far. He is a regular name that we've had as a streaming option. His first 2 weeks, subpar. I get it, right? 3.6 coming off the bench in round one, 0.3 in round two. Mind you, that did include a yellow card, so that would have been changed drastically. He did play the full 70 minutes, but he did get you 7.9 this past week with 10 tackles, turnover forced, and 19 meters gained there. If he's playing the full 80 for Houston and he's hovering around that 8 to 9 tackle mark and he stays on, right, for a large portion of the game, he's not a guy that's going to blow you away and break out with a Jed Holloway type performance and get you 10 to 15 points, but he won't kill you and you'll be able to play him, to get you the 5 to 7 that he will if he does start.
Yeah, and to me, I got Rhino Herbst. I mean, again, it's barren out there, but this guy's got back-to-back 5-point weeks. Yeah, back-to-back 5-point weeks. Impressive, right? But for me, it's the 80-minute games. Both of them playing the full match. You love to see that as second row. And honestly, for second row, you just get the points where you can. Last week, doing absolutely nothing on offense, all on defense, 15 tackles to get him all of his fantasy points. Yeah, for me, Rhino Herbst, just a workhorse.
I want to shout out a second row in there too. James Scott. Chicago Hounds. He's pretty owned. I think he's like 70% owned. But you're looking at a guy who's played 80 minutes in his first 3 games.
Yeah.
He's got a try in one. He's not going to eat you a lot of meters. He got 29 in week 1. But he ended up with 14 tackles last game, 80 minutes, 2 meters out of 5.4. Not bad. But like I said, he's highly owned. So
if you get 5 points from your second row position, I'm happy.
I'm happy.
Honestly
100%.
at this point.
You're really looking for a guy, like it's been said, minutes and tackles. That's what you want out of a second row.
Yeah, and then maybe he bangs you in the lucky try here to include the 5 points. Moving on to the back row, Maddie, let's start with the guy that you talked about and you're really high on in that Seattle-Houston match, and is surprisingly 0% owned, literally available in everyone's league right now.
That's
and you can go snag him up.
I mean, hey, a guy who is just coming back,
I guess,
from whatever he was out from last year. He comes off a 58-minute game, I guess in round 1, not doing much, but this game he was just a different beast, and it's really hard to ignore. The guy plays 79 minutes, 8 meters gained, 1 try, whatever. It's the 22 tackles and the 3 steals that does it for me. That's what you love to see out of your back row. Devin Short, he passed not just the stat test, but also passed the eye test for me. Workhorse, you love to see it. You love to have him, and you're going to want to pick him up in the waiver wire.
I mentioned Joe Johnston. He's the captain right now for the New England Free Jacks. He was the one, I guess, bright spot when it comes to the New England Free Jacks performance. He has 24.3 fantasy points on the season. He's only 17% owned right now. And he's a guy that if he's going to continue captaining for the Free Jacks, he's going to be on the field, and
Mhm.
he's a guy that is that workhorse for you, right?
And
28 tackles in round one,
yeah,
18 tackles in round two. That makes it what? Quick maths, 46 in 2 matches played,
Nice.
averaging 23
as
per
if there isn't a
match so
thing on the
far.
side that says the sum of what he's done this year.
Yeah. Also a brand new feature on the fantasyruckers.com.
Quick
Uh,
math, though.
Either
I'll give it
way,
to him.
he adds the turnover force as well. I think Joe Johnson's going to be
And
a fine option there.
and we and Conradi left early, so that just opens the door for him, and it makes more space for him in that crowded back room, or was once crowded back row.
Yeah, and I'm talking also talking about captains. We mentioned him last week, but I will throw out there, pick up Lucas Rumble if you
Oh,
can.
Another good defensive
43%,
game.
43% owned, 24.9 fantasy points on the season. I think he'll be an adequate option
you know what?
season long
He
here.
played a great game too. He kept
Yeah.
cutting off that back line. Like he was doing great.
Yeah, we got to get him on the show. We could definitely get connected with him, get him on the show. All right. Moving on to the scrum half
Good
position.
Canadian,
Talk about another barren position. They're just getting snacked up. Maddie, for you this week, it looks like your waiver wire pickup is a prospective one if there is issue with John Poland.
Hey, John. Yeah, Oscar Lennon is the next guy up, and we saw him play well in the playoffs, right? Like this isn't the first time seeing MLR. He's a young guy. He's pretty adequate, and you're just really taking advantage of opportunity here. If John Poland is out, you're going to want to have him in your lineup because he's going to be the first guy or one of the first guys taken off of, I guess, the free agency after waiver wire period is over. So you might as well get him early.
And you can count that people will be scrambling to pick him up.
Well, John Poland owners for sure will be scrambling to pick him up.
Well, I mean, and then if that lineup comes out and you see Oscar Lennon in there, there's also a note that Cam Nordley-Kelemeti is injured. So, yes, it is going to be Oscar Lennon that will be filling those shoes. I'm going to go with the guy, Maddie, that you were high on heading into this season, and he had a pretty solid performance this year, or excuse me, in week 3, Carlo Denishan. 8.1 fantasy points on the season, 14% owned. They obviously went with the experiment of Carlo Denishan starting at 9, Carl Keane moving to the 10 position, and then obviously Line Latu moving back to the 15. They look the best with Carlo Denishan at 9. So I would not be surprised if he starts again this coming week. It is hard to find a starting 9 this it feels like everyone's scrambled to pick those guys up. There is no more Logan Crowley's out there. There is no more, you're not picking
Zion
up
going. He's probably going to start next week.
He has 40 minutes, buddy. 40 minutes. Not even 20.
Carlo Denishan, 14% owned. Go with that. Moving on to the fly half. I'm going to cop out here. I mean, I don't think there's anyone available. Like, I mean,
you gotta go Rodney. He's the last guy. He's the last guy available. And I don't even know what's happening in that 10 position Seattle. Frankly, Fouché did not win the job for me in the last game. So yeah, might as well pick up Rodney and just see where you're at,
57% owned. So even the guy that is kind of on the cusp is still owned by a majority of leagues.
Yeah.
There's
the
no one
next
in
guy
there.
Is maybe Luke Carty.
Yeah. Like you
But
can
NOLA
maybe
stinks.
see where that goes. Yeah, you don't know what that experience is with Dorian Jones, kind of in and out as well. Tim Swiel is injured right now. We got reports of that. Adrian Carls has been picked up in a large portion. Some names I'll throw out there to check if they're available. 71% owned, both of them. Eddie Fouché, you can see if you can try to see if there's that, and then Joel Hodgson, 71% owned.
That's dumb.
Should definitely be.
He should never be
rostered.
71% owned.
No.
Pick him up.
He's gonna be 100% owned by the end of this week. I
Danny,
promise.
pick him up.
Fly half's tough though, because like scrum half. Sometimes you can look at your team and be like, I'm not dropping anyone for a scrum half. Like last week, I didn't even pick up a scrum half. I was like, Bertrand, who's going in, enjoy your bye week. Maybe you get me 1 point.
Yeah.
Because
it's true. It's true.
You got to play a fly half, man. You got to.
I mean, this is just explaining that like it's going even harder with Maddie. Like our emphasis at the beginning of the year, talking about the scramble it is going to be the fly half position, and we saw it happen in drafts. This is why. But at the same point, though, it's like, did you pick the right one?
Yeah.
Right? Because like, I mean, if you have Jason Robertson, right, who was picked, after the flood of kind of early guys.
Yep.
He's played and started every match, and he's been great for you. You talk about
points.
Yeah, it's interesting. All right, moving at the center position, I'll give mine first. Tian Lutz, 14% owned. 21 points on the season so far. Again, I think along with Utah, San Diego is kind of a team that I want to have assets and pieces from. Tian Lutz has been out of the lineup, in and out. He started week 1, out week 2, coming off the bench, and then in week 3. But I mean, pretty solid performance this past week. 8.9 fantasy points in the full 80 played with 14 tackles. Again, we've heard the Tian Lutz has performed before. He was one of the top guys heading into this season, and there's always a chance being a part of San Diego that he can kind of break out for a big match. And at only 14% owned, if you need to bolster that center position, you missed out on Ollie Devoto, you missed out on maybe some of these other center guys. Stash Tian Lutz on the back of your bench and see maybe what he does.
Coming off an 80 game too.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't know. I'm going to throw out Stephen Hughes. One, it's more of a matchup thing. I think he can do well, and I think I like the way he played in round 1 as well. So yeah, I'll throw out Stephen Hughes, Mogor DC. I think he can do well against the Anthem this upcoming weekend. But more so, I would like to say, Ryan, in the past, just as we're talking about the center position, if you're looking for a guy to drop in that center position, Ryan, we can just go ahead and drop to Tamaki. We're good. We don't need any more. Centers aren't going to do you any good when you can't retain your own ball.
That's true. I will just throw out there Bryce Campbell. Check if he's available. 57% owned. Chicago looks good right now. He started and played, I think, almost the full 80 in every single match, if I'm not mistaken. Bryce Campbell, pretty solid. Yeah, has played 80, 70, 80. Yeah, wow. Coming off his best so far, 10.6. He's definitely a guy that I would stash as well. An adequate starter.
I'm not taking him.
No, there you go. Lastly here, Maddie, we're in agreement in terms of the top back 3 player here. Jordan Trainer. You want a piece of Utah? He's only 29% owned right now. Top on this guy, fullback position. He's going to be consistent for you. He's going to get you meter. 21 points on the season so far. Remember, Utah had the bye week in that first week, so it's 21 points over 2 matches played. Catch him while you can. I'm telling you, Jordan Trainer is going to be a mainstay in people's lineups by the end of the year.
Yeah, somebody was telling people this like 4 weeks ago.
Yeah, he does something electric at least once a game, so it's pretty nuts watching him play. Just absolute class. The one guy I will say, 57% owned, Laine Latu. I just got to talk about him because of the way he's played in the past 2 games. Over 14 points in each of the last 2 games. With over 90 meters gained in both of them and a try in one of them. One of them starting at fly off, one of them starting the back 3. The only downside for him, which is why I didn't put him on here, is because of Mitch Wilson. Laine Latu, some points coming from the conversion kicks that he did. When Mitch Wilson comes back, Mitch Wilson will be back on the tee. Does Laine Latu move back to 10? And that isn't a great kind of spot for fantasy owners. You'd much rather have him in that back 3. So interesting one. You'll have to make a decision there, but he's also a look.
I will mention also Santiago Videla. I think there was a lot of rage drops after his start at the center position in round 2 after he only scored you 2.8. But he sees the field a lot. He scored outside of that one performance at center at that fullback position, 9.6 in round 1, 16.2 in round 3, and he added his first try of the season this past week. He's only 71% owned, so he's available. He needs to be on people's lineups as well. Especially with the type of game style that Miami plays with the kicking style, and he's involved and he's going to get you meters in there as well. In terms of there's 2 games that I want to play with you guys before we move on to this next segment here. The first one is, out of all the names that we listed, is there anyone that you're dropping fab on for this week? A considered amount of fab for that. Is Devin Short an option?
Defense.
Utah defense, really?
Our set piece is nasty, man.
How much would you go?
100%.
No, stop it. Don't be spreading. Don't be spreading. It's just because
honestly, I don't know. Drop a few bucks. Like, honestly, this team has gotten an offensive bonus point in every game in the last, I guess the past 2 games. They already had their bye, so they're not going to have a bye for a little bit. They've had a set piece try assist in both games. Their set piece, when you look at the eyes, it looks dominating in both games. Like, they're only owning 43% of the leagues. I would put at least 3% of your fab on them.
Jordan Trainer, you're dropping fab on him?
Yeah, sure.
How much?
$2.
Okay. So no one above 10.
I don't think. No,
well, the problem is there's some really good back 3s.
Yeah, I don't think there's any guys like it's also
Rhino
volatile.
Herbst.
No,
Okay. All right.
I
Just
would
checking.
say the ones for me would be the fly halves. It seems everybody has two fly halves. If you've got a guy
If
that's injured or whatever, you need to roster at this point. Everybody's on it. There's tons of back row talent. There's tons of back three talent. Centers are eaten up, but fly halves this year are gone.
if Joel Hodgson is available in your league, like
Drop him
I'm
fab.
dropping like 20%
Yeah.
at
Literally
least.
drop everything.
Like, yeah, I'd agree. Okay, quick rapid fire then to wrap up this segment.
Oh
We're
boy.
playing drop or not. For
Okay.
any of the guys that we talked about here, would you drop these players for any of the waiver wire options that you said? Dwald Kotza,
Drop.
Matt.
I
I dropped him last week.
Yeah, why not?
All right, so you're taking Karan Van Vieren, Facundo Gaddis over Dwald Kotza.
Yep.
Okay, Jade Stigling.
Ooh.
No.
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 Not yet. Not yet.
If the game's drop or not, it's not hard. Say not or drop.
No.
All right, not. You mentioned him, Matt. Isaac to Tamaki.
Drop.
Okay. Rodney Iona, you had him as your waiver wire pickup, Matt,
No.
so I guess he's not a drop option. Riekert Hadding.
Oh, this is killing me. I can't answer. He's on my bench. I can't answer this.
Drop.
Ah!
All right, Joe Johnston, Devin Short over Riekert Hadding. Yarrow Gomez Vara.
Drop.
All right. Vian Conradi.
IR.
Vian Conradi.
IR.
Vian Conradi.
Wait till he goes on IR.
And then lastly here, if this is the caveat, if he does not appear in this week's lineup, Semi Kunatani.
No.
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 Okay.
That
All right,
man will rot
No.
on my bench before I drop him. Are you kidding me? The week I'm saying this to
checking.
every fantasy manager. The week
He's gonna
you
come
drop
back
him,
and score 30 points.
yeah,
That's
the
true.
week you drop him, he's starting next week. So one of you drop him so he can start for me. But you, other than that one guy dropping him, everybody else hold him. You're crazy. You are.
All right. All right, just I had to throw it out there.
I'll put it this way: if you drop Semi and he plays, you want to talk about fab numbers? We're talking
true.
above
That's true.
60%.
Just to let you know, this feature doesn't even exist. But the minute Semi Kunatani gets dropped, I get a notification, and I am picking him up so fast. So
Oh
if you
my-
even think about dropping him,
All right, just had to check. Just had to take a temperature test. All right, let's talk about the week.
You will
week
drop
rot
it
there,
over
Ryan.
there,
Don't
so
think
forth.
you're getting lucky.
Rocking Rundown.
I did
Yeah,
6
I'm-
weeks. I did
I'm
6
just
weeks
spitting-
of holding younger. You think I'm going to drop Semi Kunatani?
Yeah, fair enough. I'm just spitting the propaganda so that I can get Semi Konatani on my team. All right, let's talk about the week 4 lineup of matches. Again, we got 5 games, only one team on bye. That is the NOLA Gold. So no need to worry about NOLA poo-pooing
Falcon.
the bed this week. Vandy, this is where you can kind of have your flowers. 9-5, baby.
Whoa,
You go perfect. Okay, I'm gonna say this right now. You're a cheater. You're a cheater because
that's
No.
not nice.
No, I'm tactical.
no. See, that's not how this game works, right? We
If
are
the
supposed
game
to take.
allows me to do it, I'm not cheating.
So we're
True.
supposed to take our picks that we make on this show,
Mhm.
and we participate in a thing called Jack's Rangers weekly picks.
Yep.
It's on our Discord. John Payne's posted every single week.
Yep.
Join in on the fun. It's a good time just to see where you stack up against predicting. And Vandy, he's leading with the bonus point. Gets 5 for 5 this past week and is winning the weekly challenge, tied I think with 2 others. But he went with friggin' San Diego in the Jacks Rangers picks and went DC live on this show.
Mhm.
Respect that.
Mhm.
You
Hedging
respect
your
it?
bets.
Mhm.
Hedging your bets.
Mhm.
All right, I see how you guys play. All right, I'm at 6-8.
I want you guys to tell
Maddie-
me if I cheated. I didn't cheat.
Maddie, you are at 5-7.
No worries.
Let's get right into it. We start off with the Friday matchup, another Friday matchup. The Miami Sharks taking on the Chicago
This is
Hounds,
tough,
7 p.m.
actually.
Eastern time.
No, it's
What are we
not.
thinking here? Chicago, obviously,
Michael
with the
Miami.
injury, it's going to be a little bit tough. But Chicago coming off of a big dominant dub over New England. Miami looking not so great against Anthem. Got to go Chicago here for me.
Gotta go Chicago, he says.
Yeah, I like Chicago here. And also look at that Chicago back row room. I think Lucas Rumble has a pretty big game here. And the back row room might have a big game too. As well as
I will say-
Chicago's what, 2-1? They only lost to us. Yeah, I'm going Chicago. You're right. You're right.
I will say We'll get into the TFR betting challenge in a bit, but if there are announcements that there are injuries to the Chicago Hounds lineup, I might take the
And I'll
Miami
switch it on
Sharks
my
as
Rangers picks.
yeah, Miami Sharks on the underdog
Hey,
there,
but you guys are
depending on
still
what the
playing your
line is.
Miami guys, yeah?
Hmm?
Still playing Miami
Yeah.
guys?
Still playing Miami guy, yeah.
Still solid. All right. Then we have all Saturday matchups for the rest of the way. 3 p.m. Eastern time. Old Glory DC tanking on Anthem
We'll
Rugby
go DC.
Carolina. Anthem looks good. Or looked good somewhat on against Miami. Try to take advantage. Try to go for that first win. Couldn't do it. Old Glory looking a little bit sloppy against San Diego. You could probably
And San
predict where
Diego.
this is my pick going against. I'm going Anthem Rugby Carolina again because now I'm fishing for those wins. I'm picking Carolina.
I'm going Old Glory DC. I'm not dumb. Yeah, I don't know. Like they played San Diego last week. Like Old Glory DC, when we think about how they looked against Miami, like we
Yeah.
were saying how they looked, their back line looked really good. So you have a
Jason
game against San
Robertson was
Diego.
good.
Yeah, they have a game against San Diego. That's a tough one. I think they bounce back. That back line, I think, is going to have a game. Axel Muller and Damian
Ooh.
Hoyland are about to have a game this week.
Yeah, I mean,
Join the dark side, Vandy.
come to the dark side. Who's at home?
Old Glory.
Literally doesn't matter.
Well, it kind of does. You know what? And I'm gonna parlay it with
Stop it. No, just stop it. Just pick your pick, Vandy. I'm sick and tired of your
With
random picks.
Martin
and caveats.
Vaca. I'm gonna parlay it with Vaca actually playing this week and getting 2 tries. So OGDC.
All right. I'm going to be fishing for this Carolina win until the end of the season.
You know what they say about
and
fishing though.
I know. It's okay. I'll just change it on my Jacks Rangers picks. Okay. Utah Warriors taking on the Houston Sabercats, 4 p.m. Eastern time on Saturday.
This is a tough one.
This one's going to be a fun one. I know where Vandy's going to go with this one. I will join him on this bandwagon. On this train. Yeah, choo is right. Utah Warriors, they look too good for me. Let's ride this train. When Vandy's happy, I'm happy.
That's right.
And
Yeah,
I can only imagine how
Come
happy
on,
he's gonna
boys.
be
Choo
if they start off this season undefeated.
Let's make that a trio. I think Utah wins. Joel Hodgson starts. Joel Hodgson manages the game and just clinically breaks down this Houston defense.
When was the last time we went?
Hey, Maddie, the real thing we got to know: Logan Crowley or Zion Going? Who's starting?
They're probably going to split 60-40, and it's the worst thing ever.
I don't know when the last time has been that we've been consensus Utah on this show.
You know what? It feels good because every week I pick Utah, I feel like
it's felt like a while, right?
Oh, guys, Jordan Trainer, look out for a big game. Just a lot of counterattack from him. I just think he's going to do it. So,
all right,
Joe Mono, 2 try.
2 games at 10 p.m. Eastern time. We start off with a rematch of last year's MLR Shield. They're calling it the Coffee
Walmart
Cup
version now.
They're calling it the Coffee Cup. Starbucks versus Dunkin' Donuts. Seattle Seawolves, New England Free Jacks. What do we think here, boys? This is two teams that haven't matched their expectation heading into this season. I don't know. I have my pick written down here right now, but I might change it. I don't know.
So
but
they're both pretty banged up, right?
Yeah. Banged up. Don't look as good. What are you guys thinking?
Seattle at home. 10 o'clock game.
I'll say it. The only reason why I picked Seattle, I had it on my list, is because they're at home.
Yeah.
And West Coast travel. I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to go Seattle here.
I will follow you.
Okay. Vandy goes Seattle. Maddie?
I'm going to go New England Free Jacks.
All right. New England Free Jacks. It is.
I think Seattle had a tough time against Houston, and New England Free Jacks got similar defense.
I got to get the milk crates out for this one.
Last one. Again at 10 o'clock Eastern time. San Diego Legion taking on RFC Los Angeles. RFC coming off the bye. They haven't matched expectation as of yet. San Diego looks like they are just in a wagon right now in terms of how they're playing. It's hard to go against RFC or hard to go against San Diego Legion. I guess in my case, it's hard to go against RFC LA because I'm supposed to be the in-house fan.
Yep.
But I'm picking San Diego in this one. They just look way too
Do you even know how to be a fan?
No, I don't.
You don't. I'm going San Diego too, but that's just heinous.
That's heinous.
Maddie, who you going? Or Vandy, who you going?
I mean, the Legion are stomping.
Actually, no. I'm gonna go LA to show you how to be a fan. I'm going LA to simply show you how to actually support.
Oh, and they're so gonna win this week, and that would be. I know we're gonna. I can picture it in my head. This show, Vandy, don't do it. Don't make me look like the guy. It make for good content.
I think just because, yeah, you know what? And Steph
if you pick San Diego and Jack Rangers,
we found him. Semi's back.
Found him.
Semi's
back. That's what they did on their bye week.
Give me LA.
Wow, they found him on the bye week. All right, we'll see. We'll see if Semi returns. But hey, all right. Should be a fun week. Lots of interesting matches in this one. We quickly wrap up though with our last segment of this show.
TFR Betting Challenge.
All right, the TFR Betting Challenge presented by Betstamp. Betstamp Betting made easy. We got a link down below to get you some first-time user deals in sportsbooks available in your area. We partnered with Betstamp to get you guys some good deals to get the good deals and also support the show.
Yes,
we've been having this TFR Betting Challenge where Vandy and I go head to head and who can make the most money in picking some rugby matches, and neither of us
are we supposed to be making money here, Ryan?
Yeah, I guess at this point we should just change the game to who can lose the least money. I will say, I think I got to start listening to our community member CJ Rugger because it didn't count towards the TFR Betting Challenge, but I was feeling good about the Anthem pick that I had, and this was before, and he messaged like, "Oh, the line has went to 20.5. Like that's like a can't miss." So I'm like, all right, I'll double down. I'll get the Anthem win, and then I'll back that up with covering the 20.5 spread, and that hit. It didn't count in the TFR Betting Challenge because I didn't put it up in the graphic in time, but it still was good. But Vandy, technically, you are still winning right now because you are losing the least amount of money. We'll see if we can get back in the win.
You should have my summer score. I was at like 50.
I know. The outside of it. I mean, MLR right now, though, just like the title of the show, like flip the script. Like, man, it has been so hard to predict.
It has been.
It's tough.
I'll give some ones that I like, and I'm going to predict some lines. Old Glory versus Anthem line's probably going to be around at least 19 points. I would say definitely take Anthem to cover that. Here's the other one that I like. Utah versus Houston. I think Utah is going to end up being the underdog by the books. I would definitely take them on the underdog.
Who's at home? Is it Utah at home?
Utah's at home.
They're playing under the mountains.
If Utah is underdogs in that one, I might even take the straight money line and try to get Utah as the underdogs.
Yeah, honestly. If Utah's underdog, I'm definitely taking.
I get it. We're hopping on the train here, but I mean, Utah looks too good. To do that.
You got to ride the hot hand. That's betting till you get burned.
That is true. All right, let's get some real numbers out here. Obviously, the lines come out towards Thursday. Again, hit that link down below to find sportsbooks available in your area that do include these Major League Rugby lines in Pennsylvania, where I'm at. Available on both DraftKings, FanDuel, or Fanatics, and Bet Rivers. It varies from state to state, province to province. So check out again that link to get some free bets and to get into those sportsbooks that do include Major League Rugby. Maddie, let's talk about some Six Nations this week. The Super Rugby Pacific lines aren't out as of yet. So we'll stick with Six Nations. They had the break last week. Let's start off with the first matchup of the weekend and the line for you to guess when it comes to the first matchup, which I'm pulling up here.
Wait, what league you in right now, Ryan? Six Nations?
Six Nations. Between France and Ireland to finish off here. Obviously, Ireland as won the Six Nations, but 9:15 a.m.
Ireland, the favorites by what? 3.5?
1.5.
Yep. Yeah. Makes
you like that at all? That's a tough one. Favorites.
I'd stay away from that one. I'm staying away from that one. There's no way I'm betting on that one. You got two easy ones here to parlay.
Wales and Scotland. What do you think the line is there,
Scotland's favored by 12.5.
16.5.
Yeah. Checks out. I would 16's a lot of points.
There's a lot of points.
But Wales has been stinking. Go Scotland.
All right. Even with the 16th, cover the 16.5 spread. Huh?
Yep, cover the 16.5.
Last one is Italy at England.
Wow, this one's got to be something.
Guess this
11 a.m.
Got to be something similar. It's got to be what, like 19?
22.5.
Jeez.
That parlay's not looking so good.
No. Well, I mean, money line. I would money line both England and Scotland if you're going to parlay. Money. But you wouldn't make anything. But what I would do, a cheeky one, Italy covering that spread.
Ooh. I guess 22 and a half is quite a bit of points.
A lot of points.
I thought the same thing against some. I thought the same thing for NOLA.
And hey, just for Super Rugby, I know the lines aren't out, but if the Crusaders are dogs versus the Reds, I would definitely take that.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, there you go. There are your picks of the week. TFR Betting Challenge presented by Betstamp. Again, hit that link down below for some new user deals at sportsbooks available in your area and help out the Fantasy Rucker Show. Been fun.
Let's go.
All right. Well, hey, another week in the books, another week to look ahead. The angst is still there. We're still trying to figure this thing out, whether it comes to picking teams, picking victors, picking bets, picking waiver wire, picking lineups, all of it. Feels like it's pretty chaotic right now in the world of Major League Rugby, but we're making it through. And that's why you listen to the Fantasy Rucker Show. Guys, anything you want to close out saying to the people?
No.
To close out?
Mm-hmm.
Go Utah, find Semi.
All right. That's simply put. Simply put. Yeah. Hashtag. What do we say? Hashtag.
Find Semi.
Find Semi.
Find Semi. All right.
Bring Semi home.
Bring Semi home.
Bring Semi home. All right. For Matt Yee, for Devin Vandy Vanderpool, I am Ryan Yee, and we'll see you next week on another episode of the Fantasy Record Show.
Love you, Sammy.
Love you, Sammy.
You've been listening to the Fantasy Ruckers Show, bringing fantasy rugby to the masses, covering everything rugby from the MLR and beyond. We hope you enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review, and be sure to tell all your friends. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, connect with us on social media at the Fantasy Ruckers. Till next time, this is the Fantasy Ruckers Show, signing off.